So the way out of this mess is a ceasefire imposed on Russia, or if no ceasefire, then tariffs on countries such as China and India that are buying Russian oil and thereby financing Russia in the war. Brazil's another one like that. Heavy tariffs on these countries from the United States would be one thing if we can't have a ceasefire, which Trump said he wants a ceasefire and he's going to impose sanctions if there is no ceasefire, but now he's backed off after meeting Putin for some reason I'm not clear about, but that's the way it is. So tariffs, heavy tariff sanctions on those people, another round of sanctions, which will lead economically to strangulation of the Russian economy, particularly if India and China stop buying oil and gas.
Yeah.
Now you can ask, well, wait a minute, are we going to create a world war? I mean, a nuclear war here? And the answer is no. And here's the reason why. First of all, China said to Putin, no nuclear arms, none. We don't go for that. That's number one. Number two, so far, if nuclear arms were going to be resorted to, don't you think by now he would have resorted to nuclear weapons? Like, what's holding him back? The answer is he's never going to use nuclear weapons in a conflict like this. Yeah. And what's needed is now for his soldiers to get out of Ukraine. That's the defining end to the war, at least a preliminary end to the war would be get the soldiers out of all of Ukraine. Now, there's 300 billion or so dollars, Russian dollars in Western banks that have been frozen. And that money needs to be seized and sent to Ukraine for rebuilding the country and helping in the war effort. Now, Trump has said, well, listen, I'm not sending in troops into Ukraine to enforce a new peace deal. And we're back to enforcement. Listen, the US, the UK, and France were at the meeting, and Russia, were all at the Budapest meeting. They said they're going to respect and enforce that agreement. So they want now Ukraine to accept another promise of enforcement, unlike, in some way, the one that they already promised and they're not living up to. They want Ukraine to live up to or agree to another agreement, which is buying time for Putin, is basically what's going on. He's trying to buy the time so that he can invade and get the army through, etc. And he has no other option. He's got to do something with this war. It was 3 days, 30 days, 60 days, 400 days, whatever it is, promised it would all be over. And here we are. Here's a funny little thought. A snail can walk in 3 years. I checked it out on ChatGPT. Check it out for yourself.
That's funny.
All across Ukraine in 3 years. But Putin's army is only at 18% of Ukraine today. That's how successful the war has been for Russia. Don't forget, this is 11 years. It's not just 3, 11 years. So that's the way forward, I think. And if we ever get rid of this guy and the world changes, it may very, if Trump wants a Nobel Prize, give him the Nobel Prize, but do what he needs to do. Win the damn war. And not by asking NATO to pay for arms from the United States to be given to Ukraine. No. You signed the Budapest memorandum. It's your job to pay. Not because you signed the memorandum and you have to pay. That's part of it. It's because Ukraine is fighting the war not for itself, but for all countries. If we give in on this territory, that's why all those European leaders were in Washington, is they knew that if you give in on this border clash and allow a big power to break through and take a country without consent and without agreement, it's the beginning of a war, world war. Who's next? I'll tell you who's next. Poland is next. The Baltic countries are next. Romania is next, and so on, out through to Europe. What's next? If things go the way they are, I'll tell you where we're going. There's going to be a massive exit of Ukrainians from Ukraine. It's projected that as many as 20 million people may flee if Ukraine falls to the Russians. Where are they going? Into Europe. What's Europe going to do with 20 million refugees? It's going to destabilize all of Europe. What happens when Europe gets destabilized? They're going to call on America to help. There's no end to this thing. America's going to get dragged into this war. So help me, God, if this war continues, we're going to see American soldiers feet on the ground in Europe. There's just no other way. Or we contain Russia at the very least by getting their soldiers out of Ukraine. But more after that, have Russia help in the effort to restore Ukraine's economic well-being along with the West. And a change needs to happen in Russia to convert it into some sort of a Western-style democratic, semi-democratic, and not fully democratic country, which will really help in terms of the economics in the West and so